Welcome to the hidden corners where truth and terror collide. Discover a realm where the lines between the living and the supernatural blur as you embark on a journey to the paranormal and visit the mysterious hidden corners of your mind.
Welcome to the Wolfman Chronicles. This is Chapter 8 of Book 8, which makes it Episode 98. We're in Thailand. The title is Reunions and Rescues. The ferry slipped through the turquoise water like a knife through silk, the wake curling behind them in soft white ribbons. And Khao Rong rose ahead of them like a dream, lush emerald hills draped in mist, fringed with swaying palms and sugar-white beaches. The sky above was impossibly blue, the kind of endless expanse that made Sasha squint, her lips set in a firm line despite the island's postcard perfection. Beside her, Rachel leaned over the rail wide-eyed. Gosh, this place is insanely beautiful. It doesn't even look real. Sasha grunted a non-committal reply, though even she had to admit that the island was breathtaking. Wooden bungalows on stilts hovered above the clear blue water of Sarasan Bay, their thatched roofs framed by the lazy arc of the beach. Green jungles spilled down the hillside in layers, so thick they looked like it'd swallow the whole beach. Birds called out in a liquid warbling tone, and the scent of salt air mingled with the wild blossoms carried on the breeze. But beauty wasn't what Sasha had come for now. As the ferry docked, Sasha's eyes scanned the shoreline, searching for any sign of tension, military presence, chaos. Instead, she saw tourists in sarongs sipping coconut drinks, children splashing in the shallow water, fishermen in long boats throwing out their nets. Her gut twisted. She had traveled halfway across the globe expecting to find trouble. Not this. Not Jack and Nadia lounging in hammocks over the crystal waters of the bay, while she sat in Alaska worrying herself to death. She watched the two figures in the hammocks, gently swaying above the water, laughing, relaxed, untouched by urgency. Sasha slowed, her jaw tightening. Rachel said something beside her, but Sasha didn't hear it. Her eyes were fixed on the two figures in the hammocks, her daughter, whom she'd been chasing her whole life, and Jack, who was supposed to be working with Miguel and Julian to protect Nadia and neutralize some person in northern Thailand. Not sipping mango smoothies on a pier, it stung more than she wanted to admit. Was this some kind of tropical vacation? Had they abandoned the mission and still not returned home? She stifled the anger that was rising in her belly and walked towards the two lounging in the hammocks. Then Nadia turned. Her face shifted, recognition first, then disbelief, and then something so raw and open that it knocked the breath from Sasha's lungs. "Mom?" she heard Nadia whisper. Jack sat up in his hammock, arm clutching the bandage around his chest, and Sasha burst into tears. Jack held Sasha's embrace a moment longer than he'd meant to. When they pulled apart, her eyes searched his face. There was that familiar tension in her brow, the tactical scan. "Jack," she said, her voice dropping lower, "you're hurt." He flinched subtly, but it was too late. Sasha's hand went to his side before he could stop her, fingers brushing the edge of the loose linen shirt he wore. She felt it, the stiffness beneath the fabric, the bandage, the healing wound. Her eyes snapped up to his. What happened? Well, he exhaled slowly, not answering right away. Nadia stepped forward, slipping her arm around Sasha. "Mom," she said quietly, "Kamarov almost killed him." Sasha blinked, her anger giving way to a rush of fear. She looked again. closer this time, and saw the signs. The faint purple bruising his collarbone, the way he favored one leg, and the way his breathing was shallow, like someone still guarding his ribs. Jack, he gave a half smile. You wouldn't believe the week we've had. Behind him, the bungalow door creaked open and two figures stepped into the sunlight. Miguel, with a book in one hand and a towel slung around his neck, and Julian, shadow-like as ever, scanning the horizon, even here. Rachel's face lit up. "Miguel!" she shouted. She bolted across the sand, leaping up the bungalow steps and throwing her arms around him. Miguel laughed, and catching her in a bear hug that lifted her off the ground. "Easy," he said. "Boy, you're taller than the last time I saw you." Julian lingered in the doorway, nodding once toward Sasha. His eyes flicked to Jack, then to Nadia, then back to Sasha. If he was surprised, he was good at hiding it. Sasha turned her attention back to Jack, who'd settled down into a wooden bench by the dock, easing himself down with care. Sasha's tone softened. "Why didn't you tell me, Jack? I could have lost you." A heavy silence fell between them. The sea breeze fluttered the hem of Sasha's skirt, and she glanced out over the water, needing a second to breathe. When she looked back, her voice was quiet. I was angry, Jack. I thought I was walking into some kind of paradise vacation. I didn't know you were here to recuperate from your injuries. Why didn't you come home?" Jack's smile faded. "I wish I could, but this isn't over yet." He leaned back, wincing. "We didn't come here to hide, Sasha, but we had to regroup." Sasha nodded slowly, taking it in. Then, after a pause, she smirked faintly. "You know, you could have told me before I had a minor heart attack seeing you in ocean paradise with coconut oil." Jack laughed softly. "Yeah, I'll remember that for next time." Nearby, Rachel and Miguel had dropped onto the porch steps, talking and trading inside jokes as if no time had passed. Julian leaned against a post, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Sasha looked around at the small team now assembled, ragged but intact. A strange warmth stirred in her chest. Something like hope, fragile and cautious. She looked at Jack again, really looked at him. "You've changed," she said. He met her eyes. "Well, but I still love you, and I'm really glad to see you," he smiled. Lanterns swung gently in the sea breeze, casting golden halos of light across the wooden deck. The scents of grilled fish and lemongrass and roasted garlic lingered in the air, mingling with the salt from the bay. Sasha and Jack sat at a low teak table, the quiet murmur of the tide just beyond the edge of the railing. "It really is beautiful here," Sasha whispered to him. "I want to hear everything, Jack. Get me up to speed on what's been going on, and don't leave anything out." Jack leaned back carefully in his short chair, a plate of untouched food in front of him. The dim light caught the edge of the scar on his jaw and the faint bruises at his temple. He spent the next hour filling her in on the events of Phnom Penh and Angkor Wat, the beauty of the temples and the anguish of the rescues. "So what's next?" she whispered, half scared to hear the answer. He told her the story David had told them about Chiang Rai, about the temple where the crazy maniac Khon Sang Wat was terrorizing the villagers with his supernatural tricks and special effects in order to hide his human trafficking network. How Kamarov was just a small cog in the wheel. "Well, why do you feel that you need to solve this problem?" she said. "Why not turn it over to the authorities?" "Because there are too many young lives at stake, and the governments, Thailand and Cambodia, have been at odds for generations. No one's coordinating. No one is prioritizing this. It's too big, Sasha," Jack told her. I understand that, she argued, but what can you four, actually do? This problem's worldwide, Jack. Trafficking rings stretch across continents. You can't save the world. Jack looked down at his untouched plate of food and sighed. Well, maybe we can't, he said quietly. But just how can we leave here and still live with our conscience, knowing that we didn't do everything we could to stop some of the madness? His voice cracked just slightly as the word some, and that was enough to make Sasha's heart ache. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. I can't argue that fact with you, Jack, but there's always going to be another trafficker, another crime syndicate, and another sang-what hiding in the shadows. The moment you take down one, another will rise. So where does it end? Jack looked up at her now. His eyes were raw. I don't know. His voice almost a whisper. But I do know it doesn't end tonight. And it doesn't end here. On this beach, in this safe little corner of the world, we've seen too much. We've survived too much to pretend it's someone else's problem now. Sasha studied him. The lines on his face, the wear in his eyes. He looked older than he had even a month ago. Older, and yet somehow more alive. She thought about Nadia, about Rachel, about the stories that they weren't telling. She watched them, Nadia, Rachel, Miguel, and Julian, swimming and playing in the warm waters of the bay. After a long silence, she said quietly, "When did you become this man?" Jack gave a faint, humorless chuckle. You, of all people, shouldn't have to ask. She reached across the table and took his hand and gave it a squeeze. You're right, you know. I just hate that you're right. Jack looked up at her. Then you'll help us? You won't ask us to leave until we see this thing through? Sasha gave him a small, sad smile. I just hope we leave this place on an airplane, Jack, and not in a coffin. They sat there in silence again, watching the sun sparkle on the water. Somewhere in the jungle, a gecko chirped. Jack's voice, when it came, was almost too soft to hear. It's not about saving the whole world, Sasha. It's about saving children who have no voice, no resources to save themselves. Early the next morning, a small, long-tailed boat pulled up to the wooden dock, its engine sputtering to a stop as the surf lapped gently against the pilings. The sun glinted off the water, casting a soft golden haze across the bay. From the boat, Alexei stepped out first, adjusting his shoulder bag and scanning the bay with cautious curiosity. Dara followed, her boots thudding lightly on the sun-warmed planks as her sharp eyes swept the beach. David met them at the dock. Good to see you, he said. I knew Alexei was coming, but I'm surprised to see you, Dara. I've got some business with Jack. Figured I'd stay for a day or two, take some vacation time. David laughed. When do you ever take a vacation, Dara? I'm glad to see you out of the office, though. Come on, I'll introduce you to Jack's family. Just up the beach, gathered under the shade of the banyan trees, were Jack, Sasha, Rachel, and Nadia, with Miguel and Julian sitting on the edge of the lanai steps. They were sipping coffee and eating fresh pineapple. Laughter echoed faintly from the group as if, for a brief moment, the world had forgotten its chaos. After a round of introductions and pleasantries, Dara turned to Jack, her expression shifting. Can I talk to you? Alone? Jack nodded, reading the change in her voice. Let's walk. The sand was soft and warm beneath their feet as they walked the curve of the bay. Palm shadows danced along the tide line. The rhythmic hush of waves filled the space between them until Dara finally broke the silence. I saw the camera feed. Jack looked sideways at her, cautious. Which one? The fight with Kamarov? He looked away, jaw tightening. Dara continued gently, no judgment in her voice. The last 10 minutes of footage, Jack, I know what I saw. You changed. He stopped walking. The breeze caught the edge of his shirt, lifting it just slightly as he stared out at the horizon. Do they know? Dara asked, keeping her voice soft. Sasha, Nadia, Rachel. Jack exhaled slowly. Yes, they all know. Dara nodded. Look, you don't have to say anything, Jack. I just want you to know. I'm not afraid of you. I've seen monsters, Jack, and you're not one of them. His throat bobbed, and for a second the tension behind his eyes flickered. I didn't ask for this, he said quietly. But you have it, Dara replied, and whether you wanted it or not, it may be the very thing that we need. She stopped and turned to face him fully. Khon Sang-Wat isn't just a trafficker, he's something else. The deeper we dig, the more we find connections to the supernatural, rituals, stage magic. His control runs on fear and belief. And if we're going to stop him, we're going to need more than just bullets and maps. Jack looked at her. You think I'm a weapon? Dara didn't flinch. No, I think you're a key. The wind picked up slightly, wrestling the jungle behind him. I'm asking you, Dara said, not as an agent, but as someone who's seen what he's capable of. Help us bring him down. Not just his operations, him. Jack looked at her for a long moment, his jaw tense, his eyes distant. If we take him down, just how big of an impact is that really going to make? He asked quietly. How can we change anything by taking out just this one man? Dara didn't answer right away. She folded her arms, looked out at the water with him, the waves pulling softly at the shoreline like a lullaby hiding a storm. Then she said, Sometimes you don't see the ripple until much later. Jack turned to her, skeptical. She continued, voice steady. Sang-Wat isn't just another trafficker, he's a node, a root system. He feeds the entire network between Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia. Take him out, and we don't just sever the head. We send a message that someone's watching, that someone's fighting back. Jack's gaze dropped, and brow furrowed. Dara stepped closer. You said it yourself. Governments aren't doing enough. Half the agencies meant to stop this are either underfunded, corrupt, or looking the other way. But if we take Sang-Wat down, visibly, decisively, we'll send him a message. We give survivors hope, and we create space for justice. Jack swallowed hard. You still believe in justice? Dara's expression softened, but only slightly. No, she said, but I believe in consequences. There was a long silence between them. The wind lifted the hem of Jack's shirt again, brushing against the bandage. The reminder of the man who nearly ended him in the jungle. He nodded slowly, almost to himself. All right, he said. We don't stop with him. We start with him. Dara gave a small smile, something fierce and steady behind her eyes. Exactly. They turned back towards the path through the palms, the sun now arching high overhead, casting shadows that stretched long and sharp along the sand. Farther up the beach, Rachel's laughter carried on the breeze. Life still existed, but war was coming, and the wolf inside of Jack knew that. The last glow of sunset filtered through the bamboo shutters, painting soft amber light across the walls. A fan turned lazily overhead, stirring the warm air. And Jack lay propped up against a woven headboard, shirt off, a fresh set of bandages wrapped tightly around his torso. Sasha sat beside him on the edge of the bed, focused and gentle as she peeled back the old wrappings. Her hands moved with the ease of someone who'd done this before, many times. The moment was quiet, only the sound of crickets and the muffled sound of waves filling the space. Jack winced as she leaned in to check the bruising on his ribs. "Still hurts?" she asked softly. "Only when I breathe," he smirked. "Or you jab your finger in there." Sasha rolled her eyes, but her fingers lingered just a second longer than necessary, brushing the edge of the darkened bruises. "You know, these looked worse only a few hours ago," she murmured. Jack glanced down at his chest, surprised to see how the deep purple had faded to dull yellows, the swelling nearly gone. "Yeah," he said quietly. "They're healing fast, faster than they should." He pulled her close and kissed her on the forehead. "That's because you're here. You've got the healing touch." Well, there was no denying that the wounds were healing fast. Sasha didn't know how to feel about that. She was glad that Jack was getting better, of course, but that also meant that he'd have to be wanting to take on his next mission, and that's what was worrying her. Well, she curled into his shoulder, content to sit there, enjoying the quiet hum of island life unfolding around them. It felt peaceful, and she didn't want anything to disturb that quiet. "You know, you're better at this whole nurturing thing than you let on," Jack said softly. Sasha arched an eyebrow but didn't speak. She didn't want to ruin the moment. Next door in Nadia's bungalow, Rachel sat cross-legged on a pile of blankets, flipping through a beat-up deck of cards that she'd found in a drawer of the bureau. Nadia lay on her back, arms behind her head, staring at the ceiling with a soft, unreadable expression. Rachel tossed a card in her direction. "Okay, next question. Did you ever have to kill someone?" Nadia blinked, then turned her head slowly. "Well, you're not easing into this at all, are you?" Rachel grinned. "Nope. I never met a real spy before. So?" Nadia exhaled. "Well, not when I was a kid, but later, when I was working for the organization. They didn't train me to avoid violence. They trained me to use it efficiently." Rachel's smile faded slightly. "That's heavy." "It was normal," Nadia said, eyes drifting back up to the ceiling. "They raised us to believe we were instruments. No names, just numbers. My name wasn't even Nadia until after I escaped." Rachel sat up straighter, the cards forgotten. "Wait, escaped? Like actually escaped?" Nadia nodded slowly. "Yeah. When I was 17, I'd started questioning everything. Why we were doing the missions, why I felt nothing, why no one ever told us about where we came from or who we really were." She paused. "I was in love with Igor and we were planning our escape. But then they gave us a mission to come to Alaska and find Sasha, my mother. It's a long story. I'll tell you sometime, but after that, Igor and I escaped." Rachel whistled. "Wow, that's like Jason Bourne level stuff." Nadia smirked. "Yeah, he had a better apartment." They shared a laugh, but then Rachel tilted her head, curiosity still burning. "So, where's Igor now?" Nadia's smile faded. "He was killed just a few months ago." Rachel was quiet for a moment, then looked down at her hands. I'm so sorry, Nadia. I didn't know. That must be so hard for you." They fell into silence again as the weight of memories filled the room. The sea whispered outside the window, and the soft creak of the bungalow settled around them like a lullaby. Rachel slowly picked up the cards. "You're pretty cool, you know that." Nadia smiled gently. You're not so bad yourself, Trouble." "Hey," Rachel mumbled, climbing into her cot. "If you ever write a book about your life, let me do the audiobook." Nadia chuckled. "Deal." The lantern flickered, and then the room fell quiet. Outside, the stars burned bright over the water. In the small bungalow that Miguel shared with Julian, a map of northern Thailand lay spread across the wooden table, held down at the corner with coffee mugs, a flashlight, and a smooth black rock Rachel had found on the beach. A satellite image of the jungle surrounding Chiang Rai and the temple compound sat beside it. They sat, poring over the map and planning their next move. Well, Jack's going to need a couple more days to heal. We'll use that time to prepare. He's got all the roads leading to the temple booby-trapped, so we're going to need a lot of intel if we're going to sneak up on this guy. Miguel nodded thoughtfully. I wonder if they have wolves in Thailand. Well, if there isn't, there soon will be. A whole pack. You think Sasha's going to help? Julian asked. Miguel nodded. She won't be able to stay away. Give her a little time. She'll come around.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and I hope you'll join us next week for another installment of the Wolfman Chronicles. And until then, have a great week, everyone.
Anything you could raise around here? The mosquitoes.
Oh my God, it's the mosquitoes.
These damn mosquitoes.
They are off to hunt mosquitoes.
Mosquito's a clever little bastard. There's nothing more dangerous than a wounded mosquito.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
No, Rose, I just killed a mosquito on your cheek.
Don't let the itch drive you mad. BH Stop Bite and Sting Relief is your go-to solution to soothe your itchy, painful mosquito bites, bee and wasp stings, poison oak or poison ivy, or anything that scratches at your sanity. Get yours today right here on the Hidden Corners.
I'll take it.